Well, hi there. I'm here today with Kevin McCurley from Nerd, who I got to tell you, I discovered just a few of his videos, maybe almost a decade ago, where he was interacting with, first, what really got my attention were his Cuvier's dwarf caimans. This is one of my favorite animals in the world, but not an animal that is notoriously easy to interact with safely. And his were just unbelievable. And since I've been out here, I've held them. I've held alligators. Today I had a gaboon viper and I had rattlesnakes on this table. Kevin, I just got done handling multiple king cobras, including Lilith, the most terrifying snake I've ever encountered. And a lot of it has had to do with just the level of confidence I have in Kevin and his socialization with his animals, because they turn out just amazing. Your water monitors were the next thing that got my attention. For years and years and years, I've thought, on my someday with these animals that are normally, what I would consider animals that you just don't handle. If I ever got them, I'm coming straight to Nerd because of the things that you do. And somehow, I have gotten you here to give us a master class on socialization of animals.
Make sure you ask me some good questions.
I will do my best, but
keep me looking intelligent.
You've talked to me already some about this since I've been here, and I just kind of bring us up to speed. What do you do to socialize an animal? Especially some of these that are normally very difficult to interact with.
All right, so basically this comes down to it's obviously you have to have a real love for these living animals. I was always kind of studying them, and you have that same kind of brain. I see it, and we're really fascinated. You can give me a jumping spider, and I'm all, wow, that is amazing, and what makes this thing tick? And so it's very unique. So I have probably great attention to certain details. Basically I developed this way that I view reptiles, and it actually has a lot of value. So one of the first things, if you're going to deal with pretty much any reptile and you're wishing to interact with it and actually have some kind of relationship where you can keep an animal in a cage and just look at it, and that has its pleasures, but I'm way beyond that. I really like to understand the animal. So the first thing I'd recommend when you look at any of these reptiles, they live in modes. Very, very critical, okay? So, sleeping mode, a defensive mode, hunger, getting prey mode.
A feed mode.
Yes, and the thinking mode. Mm. The problem is, people don't know how to read their animals often very well. So, it would be stupid of me if I'm interacting with that animal in a defensive mode. So defensive mode is the problem. That is untrusting, animal's fearing for its safety, it's terrified of you, it views you as a monster. So if I'm going in an animal...
Because you are.
Yeah, literally.
You're terrifying
absolutely,
monster.
All humans are monsters.
Convincing them that it's not, that's a challenge.
Basically, if you are going to interact with that animal, you need to figure out where its mode is, and literally... obviously sleeping, that's pointless, but a lot of times they'll go from, if I go in there and interrupt them from sleeping and then disturb them, they can go from sleeping into fear mode, defensive mode. You really don't want that. So what you do is you go into the cage, you have there's a certain little degree of respect. You give that animal a second to take it in. Okay, you're coming into the cage, what are you up to? So I'm trying to shift that animal into thinking mode. Well, you can't often get some of these more tenacious species, let's say dwarf caiman and water monitors and all these different things, animals that are can be notorious to be difficult to manage or actually have something you would actually call tame or social. So what I started doing, I was dealing with a lot of wild caught animals, and they're just literally demented. And if you don't have any art, you generally, what you do is you manhandle them. Mm-hmm. And you're basically just, the mechanics. How can I safely grab this animal and manage it? And, these wild-caught animals are often coming in through the skin trade, and they're fortunate just to live, but usually they're rendered as a skin and they die. But if the animal's unique looking or some reason, and it comes to somebody like me, so I got this thing that's a literal dingbat. Must appreciate, reptiles are quite intelligent. There's all different levels of intelligence, but in some of them, the better ones, you would have intelligence likened to something like a bird. And birds are, you know, highly intellectual and just their brains very sophisticated. And a lot of reptiles, I'm seeing a very, very similar thing. We have to teach that animal it can trust us. Well, how do you do that? So I got this animal, it's like losing its mind, does not want anything to do with you. I have to somehow convince this animal that I'm not there to hurt it. So everything I do when I interact with it, everything has to be kind of like flowing. If I act real erratic and start doing all this, which I probably naturally do, I bring it all down when I'm working with these animals. And everything's deliberate. Because I know that every single thing that I'm doing right now, as soon as I start interacting with animals, it's almost like they're recording it. And what we do, I basically design something I call threads of trust. So a thread is like, this little insignificant thing. So if I have an animal, say a water monitor, and the water monitor is very distrustful, runs around, tries to bite you, does all these things, and I want to make friends with this animal. So one of the first things you want to do, you want to get the animal just comfortable with your presence in a room. So sometimes if you set that animal up in its cage, do not set the animal low. It wants to be higher, chest level, or even higher where it can observe you.
It's incredible what a difference that makes. You know, and a lot of these, you know, basically every predator is going to come at it from above.
Yeah.
And you know, you put it on chest level, and the level of threat that it's detecting constantly totally.
And you should kind of give it like a little bit of advantage points, like, oh, I'm looking at you. So you could literally go into the room and the thing's set up in its cage, play on your phone, read a book if you still do that, a comic book. For my audience.
Along those same lines too, you were telling me something I hadn't thought to do. You know, I move them up to chest level in their enclosures all the time, but you were talking to me about even when a snake, and I'm sure you're getting to this, but you know, when a reptile is getting defensive, you can, even while you're handling it, move it up above you and change that vantage point, changes the relationship, brings them out of that.
And you can see me as I'm managing different animals. So some of these animals, like if you do have an animal that is tolerant of you, they sometimes have like a little timer on them, like how long they're going to do it before they kind of lose their minds. So I can manage their stress. So if they're taking in too much information, because it is probably, you know, it's a far simpler mind than what we understand. You start getting all these little triggers and start bringing up defensive things. So your eyes are a big deal. So if I'm taking an animal and I'm looking down at it and it's afraid, my eyes are like the big thing, you know, it's very much predatory. So if I take the animal and I feel like it's kind of going to lose its cookies, I'll just raise it up. Yeah. And if I raise it over my head, you saw me doing stuff where I don't need to even look at the animal. I'm just pretty much managing the animal, handle it like you're not going to get bit. Very, you know, there's no point, if you handle it like you're going to get bit, you're going to still get bit. If you handle it like when you're not going to get bit, you're softer, everything is just like a little bit of flow, and the animals, you must realize, and I know you do, I have a lot of animals, and I have a lot of animals that can bite, and I don't generally get bit. Okay?
I think something, you know, because this is a tip that you've brought up to me that really has stuck with me. And I think one of the hard things to get over psychologically is you don't want to get bit. You don't want to get bitten by a lot of these, but sometimes I think you've got to decide with a lot of these animals that if you get bitten, that would be okay. Because otherwise you probably are going to get bitten, and you're not going to be okay with it, and you're going to get bitten because of the way you were acting. And if you can just decide it would be okay, even if it happened, then it almost certainly won't happen.
I really often just don't care. I do not care. I play guitar, so I value my fingers, and I do martial arts and all that stuff. But I really, if I led with that, I would change my behaviors. And so I don't do that. Basically, so these animals are very visual, most part. So let's say if I'm talking about water monitors. Incredibly acute in what's going on, like the slightest little movements. They're able to like look across a room, see another lizard, and all of a sudden like gauge, is that a potential predator or whatever, and that will change their behavior. So I can be interacting with this animal, and all of a sudden it sees something 20 feet away or a movement. It's not even interested in me anymore because it's not worried about me. All of a sudden it's like stops and it's looking. It's a very different thing. So, but they have to be like this for them to function in the wild, because they're literally, you know, wading birds, fish, other monitors, everything wants to eat them. So now it's getting used to seeing you, and you know, this is set aside that you have very good husbandry, and you're not doing erratic things. You don't have dogs running by, you don't have people rushing up to the cage. Control
the environment.
Yeah, you really do. You want to bring it down, because you're in a very tricky point, because if you're trying to win over this animal's trust, and that's what I do, is I'm very methodical. So another thing you could do, let's say if it's a monitor lizard, something that's a very involved olfactory system, and most reptiles do, you could take like a shirt that you've worn.
Yeah, this is another
there.
great tip. I love this.
Now it's getting used to your smell. So now if I enter the animal's cage, so when I build the thread, very, very important. So I don't care if this is Nile monitor, this is a Choke gecko, this is a angry amethystine python. I want to have a positive interaction with that animal. It could be 10 seconds where I do something where I'm invading that animal's space, but I don't do anything that causes the animal to go from a thinking mode into a defensive mode. If I go into the cage and the thing is immediately whacking me with its tail, running around, losing its mind, I still haven't succeeded at getting that thing to calm down. So that, as soon as I enter that cage and it's doing that mindless defensive thing, the brain isn't working. It's going to, oh my God, I'm gonna die. So you have to bring that down. So you have to do these very, very small things. But what happens if, so I have a monitor, let's say it's very defensive and it's sitting in the back of its cage and I don't have anybody else around, there's no TV playing. One of the first things I can do, put my hand, I like my palm of my hand, goes into the cage.
Not palm up, palm down.
Yeah, not this, I don't want that. I want this. So if I have an animal that wants to bite, I actively will use my fist. This is it's a hard thing to get, and I can probably tolerate some superficial bites. But if I go flat to the ground and I kind of slide in, what I'm doing is I want to go into the cage. Now, if I go like this, if I'm going into the cage and I'm looking at the animal, that could be a problem. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at this, but me staring at the animal is a threat. So what I'll do, and I'll turn my head, and then I'm gonna look, and if I got that animal, like it's holding its ground, and it's flicking its tongue, long tongue flicks, but it's holding its ground, flicks its tongue a couple times, maybe it even touches me, right? If I go in there and I'm doing this, and then I'll do this, and maybe if it flicks its tongue like once or twice on my hand, I go like this, pull my hand back, very quietly shut the cage, and then remove myself from that animal's vision.
And you've had a positive encounter.
So that is a thread. So remember, as insignificant as that sounds, these threads all collectively create ropes. So if I start doing this very quickly, within a week, I can achieve things. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to want to get, maybe if I'm looking away, or if I'm able to kind of look, or I can do this. I can mask my eyes, but I'm still seeing, and I get into the animal's chest and I touch it, do something. Now it's touching my hand. A lot of these animals don't just run up to you and bite. You do have a Dumerals monitor you're telling me some stuff about. I can win him over too.
Oh, I believe it.
In
fact, I feel like I can win him over applying just the little tips that
you know what I really love? This is one of my favorite things. So I've taught, I was ridiculed for a long time about my weird ways, and people were saying it's nonsense and I'm doing trickery and all this different stuff. There's no way I can have those kind of relationships. But now it's like front and center. Everybody's like, that guy is like the reptile whisperer, and these are my techniques to do it. But now people are coming around, and now they're going, oh my God, I use it on my tegu. Oh my God, I use it on my Nile monitor. I use it on my iguana. And they're listening to it, and they're getting it, and they're like, I am making so much progress. That is wonderful, because we really want to, besides keeping these animals, we want to interact.
Absolutely.
That, like when you have your tegu on your lap and you're just like, this is so wonderful. That's like a kid's dream.
That's the difference between having a tegu and watching one on TV.
Yeah.
Is you can interact with it and have that experience and connect with it. But it starts with having that interaction be positive for both of you. Yeah. And with my Dumerals monitor, when I got that monitor, he was crazy.
Terrified. That is because of something bad, horrible experiences that animal had.
Absolutely.
Probably the worst. You have to reverse that whole thing.
Absolutely.
So that animal's already very equipped with people suck. People do bad things to me. And how is that animal ever going to give you a chance when it's already confirmed everything? Yeah. So you have a kind of a hard road.
And he now, I feel like I've come as far as I can come without these techniques that you've taught me here. But we're to the point now where he is not afraid of me at all. He comes right up. He'll eat off tongs with me. He'll follow me anywhere I take him with tongs. While he's feeding, I can lure him all the way onto my arm with food, and then he'll turn around and go back. We're in a way different place, but I'm not all the way there. And I feel like these things are going to take me
So
rest
some
of the way
people
there.
will try like these goofy things with like gloves, leather gloves. I don't do any of that. I pretty much it's my flesh because this animal is getting used to my smell, and I want to get into the animal's environment, touch it, do something where it's thinking. You have to also be able to judge the behaviors of these animals. So if the animal's sitting there and it's frozen and there's no tongue flicking, it might not be blinking much, it's about ready to explode.
Yes,
It's
in some way.
Right, it's running away, doing everything. They'll almost sometimes go limp, and they're just like, "Oh my God, this is horrible," and then they just take off. That is not that thinking state. So if I'm going into the cage, sometimes I want to just even a slight touch, and I get the tongue flicking, blinking. If you ever have like a monitor lizard and you see the tongue go down the side of the mouth, that is a wonderful sign. That is everything's okay. That animal's like, you just kind of hit like this beautiful balance. The animal's like, okay, what about you? And it's giving you a chance. So as you start repeating these, and you can do multiple threads in a day, but the trick is to get in the environment, do your thing, let it touch you, let it smell you, and get out of its environment without making it lose its mind. Once you start touching them, it speeds up the whole thing. But you have to believe that the animal isn't going to run up to you and maul you. Okay? And if it is going to maul you, or it's going to behave differently, the thing is, you do not want to confuse a food episode with a handling and a trust episode, because we are trying to convince this animal it can trust you. And some of the worst animals can be totally turned over so they trust you. And what I do is I have videos on this, but we're interested in building little episodes. So if I get to the point where I can get my hand in there and I can look at it, and if I can get that animal, I'll slowly start dragging it out of the cage, and all of a sudden it doesn't want to come out of the cage, it goes back in the cage, leave its environment, come back 20 minutes later, keep doing it. Each one of these little things is doing it. Eventually that animal will probably let you out. So at that point, you can bring it up high. Now what you're doing, and then what I do, touching under the tail.
Yeah.
Touching the tail. These things really do appreciate touch. Like they're I'm looking at monitors. They literally love to interact. Once they trust you, they're like, this feels great. This is fun. And this is wonderful. And there's so many different things. Like you're playing with bearded dragons. And the bearded dragon's moving around, lick, 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 doing all that. That is a wonderful thing. That animal is very curious, very happy. It's a lovely experience. You got a gecko going around, lick, lick, lick. All these different things. They're taking in all this information because they're excited. They're literally enjoying that, and we want to do that. And we can do that with a lot of reptiles. You can change their interaction and how they view you to the point where, like, I have monitors that are dying, just dying to come out and interact with you. As I start doing this kind of stuff and raising over my head, they're less likely to just go shooting off my hand once they're above. And they can look down, so I'm sitting there petting, I'm doing any kind of thing. And the face, I'm very key, like my dwarf caiman.
You use the term nothing sacred.
Yes, nothing is sacred, because I'm trying to prepare that animal for a full interaction where I can do things. You'll see me, I'll do all this weird stuff around their things. They don't even react, because I've literally invaded all that animal space. I've convinced the animal that it's okay. So if I started doing this and I only was stroking the tail and I never did any more, I've maybe educated the animal only part way to what it can be. But as you're doing these little tactile touching things speed up. You really start winning it over. But the trick is to get the animal out of the cage, do your stuff, get it back into the cage, but don't have it race off into the cage like it's getting away from you, like it's a nightmare. Because then that way you're enforcing the idea that the animal got away from you. It got away from a danger. So do every single thing you can to comfortably get it back in the cage. And remember, your eyes are a big deal. So if you ever feel like you're putting too much and you feel like he's about ready to he's gonna lose his mind, you can do these kind of things. And a lot of animals don't run up to you and bite you. And this stuff is very true with snakes, like blood pythons, short-tailed pythons, that are, you can almost feel them building. And you see the little eyes move. You ever see the eyes move, like all of a sudden you're like, he's about ready to explode. And they'll just, and they just explode. So when that animal's doing that, do this and go like this.
And raise it
It's
up.
amazing. It's just brings down. You also notice another thing I show you. I don't know if you've seen me do it. So I dealt with a lot of large wild-caught, like reticulated pythons. And these things just want to annihilate you. And I learned from grabbing them behind the head and managing them every single time I have to manage them, it's always going to be the same.
Oh yeah, because you have to just prevent the bite. It's gonna try to bite because you're trying to kill it as far as I can tell.
Right. So I decided, this is like the thing wants, it's gonna coil up on me and then it's gonna piss on me and it's like it's gonna be like fighting for its life. I'm like, this sucks. I'm gonna start taking chances because I want to see if I can like reconvince this animal because it was collected in skin trade. So what I started doing is I stopped grabbing them behind the heads. Only time you grab them in the head is like if you're medicating them or inspecting the face or whatever. So what I would do, even though they want to bite me, so I would get them. And if their head's away, and this is very important when you're managing, so if you're dealing with a mangrove snake and you're free handling mangrove snake, and all of a sudden they'll turn around and like kind of geek on you. So that's one thing. You can put them right over your head. But another thing is, so you got this bigger snake that I can't get over my head. So what they do is all of a sudden, so the animal starts turning and it wants to collect itself on you, go for your eyes and blast you in the face. So as the animal turns, I do this. And what the animal does is it fixes on something all of a sudden, so the head goes, and then as you turn, it goes like that. So I'm always keeping it out.
You're like,
so
you want to look over there? Look over there?
So this, and then, so it starts turning, and then...
You're never there.
Yeah.
It's not even being handled.
So I just do, you saw me do it with Lilith. I do that. Like if I was doing the Lilith thing, I'm really good just by myself. There was a lot of outside
that's
stimulation.
That's the hardest thing is there's so much else for her to watch and for you to watch.
Yeah, so basically I just I would be doing a lot of spinning and stuff like that. I would have let her collect herself sooner, but she's very, very intelligent. So I think often more intelligent they are, maybe a little bit more practical, that all that energy put into trust. So once the animal starts realizing it can trust you, you can start making some good progression. And it's about basically every time you interact with an animal, it's not in fear of its life. And so what we need to do is when we're interacting with these animals, we want them absolutely in the thinking mode. And once we can read by tongue flicks, by eye behavior, by body movement, like snakes, like a very comfortable snake is generally long tongue flicks. Everything's good. It's just kind of doing this. You have a snake that's sitting there, tongue comes out a little bit, sits there or just goes like that, or not a lot of tongue flicking, and I'm petting it and it's still not a lot of tongue flicking. That animal is paranoid. That animal is like, I'm kind of defensive, and that could be like an explosive little episode. So sometimes I'll start petting them, start tongue flicking, and if I'm afraid of a biter, I'm going to just manage this. I'm going to manage going around. Also make sure there's nobody else around you. They sometimes will elicit like a reaction. So if you're really trying to make friends with this, it's really good to have your environment quiet.
The environment,
nobody's distracting you. You can keep twirling around. They're gonna go, what are you doing? Well, I'm basically confirming that to this animal that I can indeed touch it and hold it. There is no pain. There's no horrible thing. And I'm gonna get in there, play with that animal, and then I'm gonna put it back into its cage with no event. That's a really good thread.
That's
and
exactly
all
what
these
you
different things are going to achieve, what I'm talking about. But it can be done with so many different animals. It can even be done with venomous animals too, because they have brains. But the problem is, you involve tools because a tool
can
can
the
get
consequences of a bite.
Yeah, a tool can get bit and nothing happens. I get bit, it's a whole other problem.
Yeah, there's none of this with Lilith.
No, not at all. Maybe one of the first things, convince the animal that you taste bad or something, whatever. So Listerine, soaked rag, any single thing you want to bite? You want to bite? Bite that. I don't like that. And you do that a couple times and they're like, I don't want to bite anymore. And once they're not biting, then we can start doing things where, trust and stuff like that. But you have to manage that bite aspect. All right, this would be a great example of highly intelligent animals where socialization has done a great job. These animals, first of all, remember I talked about, there is no flinching, there's no dashing, there's still tongue flicking. They don't care because nothing bad has ever happened to them. They come out of the egg, they're biting, they're terrified, so nature has basically said everything wants to eat you.
The world's a very scary place for a baby monitor.
So what I do is I do supportive therapy. I have little episodes with these guys, and I do all these little interactions that basically make them very comfortable. What I'm doing is convincing them that I'm a good part of their world and that humans are interesting and wonderful and can be trusted. So then you start having this relationship with an animal. You get 5, 6 foot, that's a friggin' doll. So a lot of face stuff, their ears, and just glorious little animals.
And see, this is the exact kind of thing that I've always seen from Nerd, you know, and it's what drew me to you. It's the reason we're here now.
Yeah.
You know, is just seeing the relationship you have. Because I know what you're talking about. Like, and you were saying, you know, I think our minds do work in a very similar way. You know, I'm reading an animal and getting a feel for it. And once I know that animal, I feel very comfortable with it. But until then, you know, I need some time to analyze it and decide, you know, what is it thinking? How does it respond? What does it look like when it's threatened? I feel like when you show people a defensive snake, that's the best thing you can do to help somebody get over a fear of snakes, because you can see the way that it responds to everything. You know, it's on point, it's concerned, it follows you wherever you go. And then you see snakes, you know, they're acting like these monitors where you can be doing anything, they don't even care. You know that snake is
It's all
relaxed.
good. Everything is good. This is and they're in a different part of the building. They've been brought downstairs, and they're in unfamiliar territory, a lot of new smells, and they're very curious about this piece of cork bark.
Oh yeah.
And this is just like so cool. But this is the best. This is super rewarding, ultimately tractable. What's really good, you can handle these with 100% confidence they don't bite, even when they grow larger. The only time
Which you want when they're adults, because they're enormous.
Yes, well, they can't. So some are smaller growing.
Yes.
So this is has celebensis in it. So this is going to be smaller growing for sure. They're born smaller, and they're so rewarding. The little brains on these guys. With water monitors, this is definitely it's mid-level or upper level. There you go. I love that. See, that's what's all. See the side? Remember the tongue?
Yep.
So I just told you that
Absolutely.
is, you just hit a perfect balance. He's figuring you out. He's like, okay, who are you? And that's good enough. So what you do is kind of just, you're going to do supportive therapy. You're going to, see there, he's going to start doing this tongue again. Yeah. Nothing is sacred.
Special.
See? That was wonderful. I love that. Because you're enjoying that, and you're realizing this is actually a remarkable moment that you don't get to enjoy something like this very often.
And this is honestly what I love. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, because I realize there are different kinds of people who keep pets. You know, and they all love animals, but they love animals in very different ways. You know, and some people love them like they were a child or something. You know, and they just want to hug them and
putting
you know,
human-like needs on
very
animals,
human-like needs, and
that's often a huge mistake.
Well, it is. You know, it misinterprets what the animals need. But there are people that love them that way, and I'm not one of those people. I am a person that loves to interact with animals, and honestly, it's one of the problems I have with a lot of domesticated animals, like domestic dogs and things. Is just I don't want to see what an animal that behaves the way that humans have thought it should behave for the last few thousand years. I don't want to see the way that behaves. I want to see what do these animals come from nature doing, you know. And I just want to watch them. I want to be there. I want to experience life with them.
You're seeing the mindset that this animal would display out in a river, a tropical river, or a forest, because it's just searching and looking and investigating. So remember I said one thing. I said at least I try to see these animals for what they are, not for what I think. And a lot of people make mistakes with dogs. Dogs are still a wolf, essentially. It's a pack animal, and they understand domination, and they understand the hierarchy. But a whole thing about a dog pack is that hierarchy, which then allows to have a community, because they each know their place. In a household with people, if they don't understand that, then we get the bites of the food aggression and all that kind of stuff. And people don't understand that, and then they can take a wonderful dog and they screw it up. And there's certain parameters you have to have when you're dealing with dogs, but you need to see them for what they are, not
absolutely.
for it's muffy and it's cute and whatever. It is still indeed cute and muffy, but you have to view it as an animal.
Yep, and specifically a wolf.
That's the way I see it. Yeah.
People forget that. Hey, Kevin, this has been incredible. I really appreciate you sharing these
pull out an albino too.
Incredible tips with us, because this is a game changer, right? What you just shared with us is an absolute game changer, and it's gonna have an impact on the relationships that I have. You know, like I feel like I'm good at this, but you've taught me a lot that I'm going to apply from here going forward. And you know, other people, you know, this might all be completely
Totally enjoying you right now.
Oh yeah, well I'm full of warmth. That's what I bring to the table.
Now I know we talked a little bit about Cuban night owls. That's a fantastic animal. They're relatively inexpensive. They have a horrific bite. They're, you know, largely a lizard predator, but they're going to eat anything they can get. And people are like, oh, those things just like a tokay gecko or just, you know, just nightmares and stuff like that. They have a great little brain.
Oh, I love
You
mine.
can work them, but you have a captive born.
Yep.
So that is even a much easier win. But we can take these wild caught Cuban anoles, I have some over there,
Yes.
and you win them over, and they become friendly. And once they realize that they can crawl on you and you're not grabbing them and nothing bad happens, you just start making leaps and bounds in those things. And it's just like no fear. But this is I will never tire of this because I have so many, you know.
How could you? You can do this a million times. It's just as great as the first time.
It is, and it's not even like the paint job. It's just like that little brain and that little uniqueness. And
You've
that,
connected.
Yeah, I've definitely connected with this. And the animal's so trusting of me, and I have like great. I mean, these guys are having fun. They're just like, this is cute.
Yes, absolutely. As always, like and subscribe both to this channel, but head on over to Nerd. You know, if you learn something
What does
here
nerd
today,
mean?
New England Reptile Distributors.
That's right.
You got to go over there and you know and check them out. You know, they have a lot of fun, but they also just give you so much, right? They share things that nobody else is sharing. If you learn something here today, there's more to learn. Head on over to Nerd. We hope to see you real soon.
So she has like some staining, but this is like a white albino.
Is this staining or is this a shed?
It's the shed,
Yeah.
but it's staining because like all the mulch. This is an exquisite and like a jewel to me.
I tell the people this all the time. I've been bitten by more people than snakes. It's a true story. I get angry, but
What's that like?
I don't.
Very befuddled with you, mister.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit there and stomp my feet. And just let me tell you this. I'm very disappointed in you. I know that's harsh, but my disappointment is grand.
You give me the